So this is the first time I've played a legitimate, professional, paid touchscreen skateboarding game. The first time I played a mobile skateboarding game was this Vans pool game on the Zune. In it, you steered and spun using tilt controls and swiped the screen to do different grabs. It was sort of fun, but not for very long. So I was leery of actually paying $4.99 to play something based on the same technology. Of course, it's been about 6 years since that last one came out. In mobile gaming, that's a few generations already. So this is Touchgrind 2 for Android. I'm playing it on a Galaxy Tab S2. It works just fine on a phone, but it gives you a much more zoomed out view on a tablet, so I recommend it if you have the opportunity. I played it in about 2K resolution, but the screen capture is only 720p, so keep that in mind. The game is actually really sharp. Some of the textures aren't great, but the board itself looks really nice and the levels are all really well made. So, how does this game work? Simply put, your fingers act as your feet, and you swipe different ways to get the board to spin. To ollie, you lift your front finger, then your back one. To kickflip, you swipe your front finger instead of just lifting it, and you pop shove it by swiping your back finger. You can do these all together to do varial kickflips, hard flips, inward heel flips, and stuff like that. Lift your fingers in the opposite order for nollies. You can do grinds by ollieing at an object, then putting your fingers down at the right time. If you time it out right, you can land on the nose or the tail, allowing no slides, 5-0s, crooked grinds, and things like that. So there are some limitations in the trick selection. There's no rotation, except for on banks and in transition where it happens automatically. You can turn around by swiping across the screen, allowing for fakie and switch tricks, but it doesn't count that as a rotation. An inward heel flip with a body rotation is just an inward heel flip where you somehow land fakie, not a backside 180 heel flip. Grinds are also somewhat limited. You can land heavily on the nose or tail, but anything Smith related isn't available. So Smiths, Feebles, Hurricanes, Sugar Canes, Willy Grinds, and Barley Grinds are all missing. There are also no manuals or grabs. Flip tricks are interesting. So, as I described, you can pop straight or scoop either way, and you can flick either way. But it's all based on physics. Depending on how you do it, you can do varial double kick flips, 360 flips, triple hard flips, 540 inward heel flips, or any other combination of spins and flips. Also, the angle of your swipe makes a difference. If you flick forward, the board will nosedive a little. That means you can do the same trick a bunch of times and it will always look a little different. Or with some finesse, you can do a forward flip. You can scoop forward too and do impossibles. Add in late flips and late shove-its, and there are actually a ton of choices. The only problem is that it really takes a lot of skill to do exactly what you want. If I really wanted to do a 360 flip, it might take me 20 tries. It's impossible to get consistent with stuff. If I scooped as hard as I could, it might do a 540 flip, and it might do a varial flip. It's hard to get a feel for it because you aren't interacting with a physical object, and it's hard to get any muscle memory working. This is an issue when you start doing contests, but I'll get to that in a minute. So what exactly do you do in this game? Each of the 4 levels has a competition mode and jam mode, which is just free skate. In either mode, there are challenges that you can complete. These are usually things like do this trick or do this trick on a specific object. Sometimes it's grind for at least X seconds or do a trick X times in 10 seconds, that kind of stuff. These are really addictive and a lot of fun. Sometimes they require you to go somewhere you didn't know you could, or do a trick you didn't know you could. One example is when I had to do an impossible underflip. So my first thought is that Mike Mo trick that everyone calls an impossible underflip or an ollie imposter. The mini tutorial showed me that it's actually a half kickflip, late half impossible. You might more accurately call it a Casper flip. This game has its own language to a degree, but I think it's meant to simplify things for non-skaters. Introducing the term Casper might not have been worth it if it's only one trick. The way the game works, any late flip where the board is upside down to start is considered an underflip, and an impossible is when the board flips backwards. So an impossible underflip is when the board starts upside down and flips backward. See? It makes sense in its own way, and the terminology allows it to be a half heel flip too, making it a little more approachable for non-skaters who are playing. One term that confuses me is rail, meant like a generic term for grind and slide. You'll see it a lot in this game. Rail for 7 seconds, or rail the orange pipe, that kind of stuff. If it ever says grind or slide, it's being specific. So one challenge is rail slide 10 times in a competition run. That means you have to specifically do board slides, blunt slides, or any other slide trick. Again, it makes sense, but it's just something new for skaters. In another effort to be approachable, this game has added graffiti, stickers, or signs that it can use as landmarks. So it will tell you, grind the light post, hint, find the red arrows. Then you'll actually see the arrows on the ground and know you're trying the right thing. This is really helpful because some of these challenges are really hard, and if you finally landed it and realized you weren't on the right obstacle, you'd be really upset. For example, one challenge is a kickflip over the truck and dark slide the pipe. Now there are vehicles and pipes all over the level, but it mentions the blue circle, so there's no confusion that you found the right spot. That's good because this trick is almost impossible. When you catch the board, you drop to the ground, so catching the board upside down and still clearing the whole truck is complicated. You can either flip the board really slow and try to catch it at the last second, or you can do what I did and do the kickflip late, clear the truck, then do the flip right before you land. Unfortunately, not all of the challenges are very clear. One of them is to do a power slide into a grind. Now if you power slide at a pole jam type of rail, you just bounce off of it. Power sliding, ollieing out, then landing on a rail doesn't seem to count. And when I did it on transition, it seemed to count the power slide and grind as separate tricks. I worked on this for a long time and eventually decided to give up and leave that challenge uncompleted. Then I somehow managed to fluke my way into completing it. I'm still not exactly sure why I counted that time. But if you really want to get frustrated, try the competitions. The amount of points that you need to get gold is really high. The only way to win is to get an 8 times multiplier and do heavy hitting tricks until the time is up without ever making a mistake. The multiplier is hugely important. On earlier levels, you can do lots of shove it tricks to keep your points going and you might be able to win. They aren't worth much, but the plus side is that you always land them. Do a shove it as hard as you can, and if you land sideways, you just keep rolling sideways. Mix in a few grinds and you'll be okay. But on the later levels, they can be insanely hard. Getting 4 million points is a tall order. Luckily, this is the kind of game where you can turn on and just mess around with it while you watch TV. Getting gold in the factory level took me days. I played it for an hour or two every night, just trying over and over and over. Luckily, by the time I did the docks, I had it all figured out. Here's how you win. Get some high scoring tricks consistent. Forward flips are worth about 50,000 points, but you can do them on flat. Sometimes 20,000 or less though, I'm not sure why. But a plain old kickflip is about 5,000, so it's a big deal. Get used to triple flips on transition. A 360 triple flip can be about 150,000 points. Just be ready to catch it early at double if it doesn't look like it's going to come around. Okay, now in your run, just get your multiplier going and keep hammering these same few types of tricks. If you do the same thing too much, it's worth less every time, so try alternating spin directions. Don't bother doing grinds though, because they don't score enough considering the time they take. A 360 triple hard flip with an 8 times multiplier can be worth over 1 million on its own, so just hang in there and restart if you ever lose your line. Like I mentioned before, consistency is really difficult in this game, so it's better to focus on doing a handful of high-scoring tricks instead of having a ton of variety. If I spent time cruising around the level and doing grinds and flip tricks on flat, I might get about 2.5 million on a good attempt, but this method got me over 7 million on my last try. As you beat competitions and challenges, you unlock things: stickers, decks, wheels, and grip tape. This is really cool. Usually I'm not one to customize my board in video games, but you spend a lot of time watching the board, waiting for the grip to come around and catch it, so having all these options is nice. It keeps track of how much you've used the different decks, and they show wear based on that. You can't edit your trucks, either the look or the tightness. Maybe that will be in the sequel. There's one more issue with the game that may or may not be worth mentioning. Almost every time I played the docks, I got a splitting headache. It's a really dark level, and there's a lot of stuff you can get stuck on that makes the camera move around. I'm not sure what the reason is, and I don't know if it affects anyone else, but I thought I'd throw it out there. So I beat every level 100%, and I unlocked a thank you screen. I was kind of hoping I would get another mini level or a new mode, but I guess I can't expect too much. Was the game worth it? A couple things to keep in mind. There are only 4 levels, and a lot of the challenges will take you a few seconds. You'll put a lot of time into the game trying the competitions and harder challenges, but it's still not a ton of content compared to your console game options. At the same time though, it's a good way to kill time on the couch, and it's only $5 for everything. You can download the first level for free to try it out and decide from there, but I think you'll probably end up buying it. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, that's all for this time. What's your favorite mobile skateboarding game? I can see there are a few, but this is the first one I've tried. Any that I should check out or avoid? Let me know in the comments. Thank you.